Hey guys, I'm back with another video. I'm going to give you 7 tips that will help your warrior leveling process and make it go so much smoother. And these are tips that I wish I knew when I was leveling a warrior. Now these tips can be used for Horde, they can be used for Alliance, they can be used for the hardcore servers, or they can be used for the non-hardcore servers as well. Again, these are both for Horde and Alliance. In the background here, I just have some footage of me dual wield tanking lower Blackrock Spire on Defies Pillager on my 60 warrior. I do stream hardcore raids once in a while other than leveling my Berserker warrior challenge I'm doing. That's over on my Twitch channel right above me. Please feel free to go check that out. Now let's go ahead and get started. My very first tip for you is the use of the ability Hamstring. Now Hamstring has a lot of different uses, and we're going to dive into them for both Horde and Alliance. Obviously for both factions here, you should as a warrior be always using Hamstring on any humanoid you touch. You don't know if they run, and if they do run, you don't want them to grab extra mobs. Always get in the habit of hamstringing. And while we're on the topic of hamstringing, Hamstring also has a chance to help you proc overpowers because they can't dodge the hamstring. Overpowers are big and you should be leveling arms. You have the improved overpower. You're getting free improved crit chances on overpower with the hamstring. So hamstring not only slows mobs, it can help you get your improved overpower procs. And if you go all the way down in the arms and you find it useful, especially in hardcore, there is a hamstring talent that actually gives you the ability on a chance on hit of a hamstring to stun that target for a couple seconds. So not only does it slow, if you have the talents, it has the ability to actually immobilize the target as well. So not only can you use not only can you use hamstring to slow targets and possibly stop them, you can use them to proc overpowers because opponents or mobs can dodge hamstrings. But also if you're Horde, even better, you can use hamstring for fishing out Wind Fury procs. So if you have a Wind Fury totem, if you have a shaman friend, always don't forget to press those hamstrings because you can actually proc Wind Fury procs off of those. And if you crit, and if you are Fury by chance later in the game, you get free 3 flurry procs, which increases your attack speed, off of potentially just using 1 hamstring. The worth there is massive. Now, one other thing that hamstring can do for you is hamstring is a great ability to level up your weapon skill. So if you are just sitting there hitting a mob, also press hamstring with the rage you are generating. It's an instant attack. You can get weapon skill off a hamstring. So while you're sitting there beating up boars, leveling up your weapon skill, you should also be pressing hamstring as well with any rage you have. It's an instant attack, instant damage. That means you can instantly level up your weapon skill. So I just gave you a bunch of different reasons why you should be using hamstring, and that is just one tip alone. Again, let's recap on hamstring. Slows or possibly immobilizes targets. You have the talent. You can fish Wind Fury procs if you're Horde. You can fish for improved overpower procs or just overpowers on both factions, and it can also help your weapon skill. My next tip is I want to talk to you about Sunder Armor. Sunder Armor is probably your most important leveling ability. I'm not kidding. It has been proven time and time again that while you are leveling, if you want efficiency, uptime, rage generation, you should always be sundering mobs. Now, my rule of thumb is you should at least be throwing on 2 to 3 sunders before the mob hits 50% health. So before the mob has about half of its health, you should be throwing on 2 to 3 sunders. Now what these sunders do is obviously it decreases their armor, but there's also an auto attack that gets granted to you after the sunder armor is casted. So not only that, you get an auto attack, plus you'll be doing more white damage, especially at a low level. That's huge. So if you're doing more white damage, you're generating more rage. If you have more rage, you have more uptime on future mobs when you're killing those and you're sundering. So if you sunder my rule of thumb is if the mob is above 50% health, it should have 2 to 3 sunders on it. Go ahead and do that. It increases your uptime, your efficiency, more damage, more rage. Sunder Armor is your #1 ability while leveling. I promise you. So again, 2 to 3 sunders before the mob hits 50% health. It will help your uptime, your rage generation, and obviously more white damage. huge at lower levels, massive at lower levels. I want to give you another tip, and yes, it is another ability, Heroic Strike. This really isn't a tip, it's just telling you to stay away. You should not be using Heroic Strike at all while you're leveling. Do not waste your rage on Heroic Strike. The only time you should be using Heroic Strike is when you have more than 80% rage and you just need to dump some of it. So if you have some extra auto attacks or some extra rage, at 80% or more, and you're just sitting there needing to dump your rage out, Heroic Strike. Otherwise, you should be doing what we just talked about, using that rage for sunders and gaining more rage with extra white damage off the sunders, and then using that rage for uptime and efficiency to use on your next mobs. It's all about uptime when you're leveling as a warrior. It's all about how much uptime can I get? How much uptime can I get? How much rage can I save for the next mob? It's all about uptime. So with that, Heroic Strike is a waste of rage. A Heroic Strike is the #1 noob trap. It's the #1 trap I see nowadays when people are leveling warriors or people ask me, ditch Heroic Strike. Do not be using Heroic Strike. My next tip is another ability. It's Rend. Rend, now people go back and forth on this, but pretty much after level like 20 to 22, Rend is garbage. Now, if you watch my talent videos, I always say get improved Rend first, because not only do you need that to get to deep wounds, but Rend at a very low level is actually extremely useful. Like I said, up to about 20 to 22 is when it drops off completely, and it is a waste of rage. That rage should be going right to your sunders off the rip. So charge in, do not Rend, use the sunders, do not Heroic Strike. Again, you should not be using Heroic Strike. You should not be using Rend above the level 20 to 22. It's a waste of rage. You're not getting much damage out of it. You'll find that you'll get way more damage out of the more damage you're getting off of the sunders on top of the mob than you are with the Rend in itself. So do not be using Rend past level 20. Again, I always do recommend getting the improved Rend talents for your first 3 talents, but that's because that extra ticks of damage or that extra damage off the Rends at a very low level is very helpful, but it drops off pretty much right at 20 to 22. My next tip for you is anger management. Anger management is in the arms tree right below one of the other most important talents for warriors, which is stance mastery. You need to be getting anger management. We have been talking about leveling. This whole video is about leveling and uptime. Anger management helps your uptime. It decreases the amount of rage you lose while you're out of combat. So this helps with uptime. So again, you stack anger management with your sunders. You're saving rage in between pulls. Anger management is a great uptime efficiency leveling ability or talent. It's great for dungeons. So you have more rage to go into your next pulls. If you're blowing all your rage, you shouldn't be, but if you are, anger management helps with that. Anger management is all about uptime. Uptime is the #1 skill you need to get good at as a warrior, especially leveling as a warrior, figuring out how to maximize your uptime. And by uptime, I really mean just being able to level quicker, go to the next mob, eat less, get better HP 5, things like that. That's uptime for me. So anger management is a must. It stacks on with everything that we're talking about. Now, my next one is a ranged weapon. Every warrior should be having a ranged weapon. I know if it's your first tune, it costs 10 silver to learn. Now, here's the thing. Trolls, if you happen to be a troll warrior, they do have thrown weapons learned automatically. So keep that in mind. If you do play a troll warrior, you automatically have throwing weapons. Everybody else needs to learn them. Now, they only cost 10 silver to learn, but it's very useful. As you can see right on this video, I literally just used a ranged weapon to be able to LOS that whole pack right into me. That's why you need a ranged weapon. You need a ranged weapon to LOS pulls like I just did in this video. Right there you saw on the footage, I pulled the pack, LOS'd it right into the corner, the whole group ran right into me. Easy for everyone to DPS, easy for me to hold threat. Now, a ranged weapon can also be used for per se to grab mobs out of like a crowded area. So I always think of like in the Barrens with all the quill boars, a ranged weapon for there is perfect. You always as a warrior need a ranged weapon. You will die if you just continuously charge into everything. You will die. You need a ranged weapon. As you can see here again, I use the ranged weapon It LOSs the mobs right up the corner to us. The casters have to come up. Boom, I have the whole group at me. You need a ranged weapon. Now, my last and final tip is one that I talk about all the time, but I feel like it needs to be stated again. You do not need to be spec'd into protection to tank dungeons. It has been proven time and time and time again that you can get away with tanking dungeons. I'm tanking dungeons on my Orc Warrior right now without a chest piece, dual wield, and I am arms. Perfectly fine. I pug the majority of my groups. All of my healers are pugs. I run the groups just fine. There's nothing to worry about. You can tank dungeons, arms, fury, all the way up to ZF, potentially even Sunken Temple without having an issue. Now, if you want to be 60 and you want to be prot to tank your pre-biz dungeons, go for it. I went fury prot, but if you want to be prot for your 60 dungeons, by all means go for it. But at a low level, there is no reason, and I talk about this all the time in my tanking videos, you cannot dual wield, you can two-hand tank, there's no reason not to. Get more damage output, more threat output, better rage generation, everybody's happier. It just works, okay? You do not need to be protection. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope I give you some good tips about just uptime and leveling tips. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys another time.